A cunning Canaanite. A cunning Canaanite. Some translations have a cunning merchant because of the meaning of Canaanite. A cunning Canaanite, deceitful scales are in his hand. In a way, we can understand this as how those from Israel, the people of Israel who went to the land of Canaan to take it by the hand of Yahweh, after they began worshiping the same entities as the Canaanites, spiritually they became Canaanites, and therefore they were deceitful, and they were doing a lot of things that Yahweh forbids. So just like when a person from whatever nation they may be, if they accept Yahushua, they are one with him, and therefore they are Israelites, true Israelites in the spirit. So a cunning Canaanite, deceitful scales are in his hand. He loves to oppress. It's interesting how in the third seal of Revelation 6, we see that the rider of the horse has scales in his hand, and he comes to bring hunger to the world. Mainly spiritual hunger, but there will be obviously also physical, literal. So it said, a cunning Canaanite, deceitful scales are in his hand. As we know, the land of Canaan was the one that Yahweh gave the people, which became Israel. But when the people of Israel began to worship the gods or the Elohim of Canaan, then they became Canaanites spiritually. Just like nowadays, when a person from any nation accepts Yahushua HaMashiach, he becomes a Yahudi, a spiritual Israelite, because he accepts the root, the true Messiah, the root of David. So here, a cunning Canaanite, deceitful scales are in his hand, is showing the ways in which Canaanites would act and how Israel became as a Canaanite, because they started practicing the same things, not only religiously, like worshiping the same false Elohim, but also in business and stuff like that. As in, deceitful scales are in his hand, and it is written that Yahweh hates deceitful scales. So the fact that people were doing that was to show, or shows, that they have no regard for what Yahweh thinks about what they do or how they should do things. So also it's important that in the chapter 6 of Revelation, we read that the third seal, when it is open, a horse comes out, and its rider has scales in his hand, and he's going to bring what is prophesied in the book of Amos, the prophet Amos, which says that in the end times there would be a hunger, a famine that has never been seen in history, like never before. Even though we see in scriptures that there have been 9 famines, and the one in Amos is the 10th. So there will be 10 famines throughout human history, and the 10th obviously will be the worst, and is mainly spiritual. So even though there will be people with hunger and people dying of hunger because of how the economy will collapse, and they are doing so right now with the COVID, the fact that the rider of the third horse comes out with scales and start changing prices for food, and the food that is needed for people to continue living goes up in price, while the food or the things that people take to get intoxicated and not think about life goes down, so that people may go for that which they don't really have a need for, or that actually will numb their senses so that they don't realize what is happening around them, since everybody feels that it's the end times, but nobody is, or just a very few are, of course, but most people are not willing to face that fact and then seek the presence of the Almighty to know what to do and how to react to what's going on. So the third seal brings scales in his hand, the rider of the third horse, and will bring hunger, a famine to the world, mainly for the word of Yahweh, because Yahushua is the bread of life. His blood is the wine. He is the water of life. So we must eat of him, meaning of his doctrine, his teaching, his example. We must do as he did. So when it says here cunning Canaanite, as in the false Israelites, who, and not only Israelites genetically, I mean those who claim to be Israelites, or even those who claim to be believers but they actually follow a different entity. A cunning Canaanite, deceitful scales are in his hand. The way they do business is deceitful, but this also can be interpreted as the fact that they don't judge well. They judge by appearances, so their scales are wrong. When they do something, they don't judge themselves, but they continually judge others around for doing things that are even less than what they do or practice. A cunning Canaanite, deceitful scales are in his hand. And also shows how as I have explained, the false prophet is connected with that spiritual hunger or famine of the end times, the third seal, just like the second seal is connected with the first beast, the third seal with the second beast. And the second beast is pretty much the false prophet whom the people will listen to when it comes to religious matters, as what spiritual life should be. And they will reunite, or they will unite through through the Catholic religion. They will unite all religions, so that the leader of it, the false prophet, will be the leader of all of them. And then once the false Messiah appears, they will even destroy that religion, just in case, because they will set up a completely new one.